April 13th, 1981, Barrington, Illinois, 7 a.m. It's a warm spring day in the sleepy suburb of Chicago. As the sun casts its first light, the First National Bank of Barrington opens its doors, unaware of the danger lurking within the shadows. As the morning goes on, a customer comes in requesting access to her safety deposit box. The teller and the customer head straight into the vault where everything seems pristine, just as it was left the previous Friday. The teller places the key into the customer's lockbox, but then something strange happens. The cylinder lock falls backwards into the box. The customer stands there perplexed, but is quickly escorted out by the teller. Immediately, the teller alerts their manager, who calls in the authorities. Local police and FBI agents quickly arrive on scene. The agents carefully examine the box in question, and then the other boxes. Tentatively, they push in another lock. It falls in. Another lock. It falls. The same happens for each of the 74 boxes in the vault. A robbery had taken place. Very little physical evidence was left at the crime scene, and what they do find perplexes the investigators. An alarm clock and a soda bottle filled with urine. More astounding is the fact that investigators can't even determine how the thief penetrated the vault, let alone leaving the vault without a trace. By the time an inventory is finished being taken, more than $1 million in cash, gold, and valuables are reported missing. $1 million in 1981 is equivalent to the purchasing power of about $3,400,000 today, making this one of the most successful bank heists in U.S. history, one that prosecutors would go on to call almost a perfect crime. The criminal? 44-year-old suburban hairdresser William Smarto. This is the true story of one of the greatest thieves in modern-day history, and the heist that changed bank security forever. Our story begins 4 years earlier in 1978, Deerfield, Illinois. William Smarto works as a hairdresser at the Velvet Brush, a barbershop that he also owns. But, craving more to his life, Smarto dreams of something bigger. And so, he enlists his brother Vincent into his scheme. Their plan? Bank robbery. No violence, no victims, all profit. The Smarto brothers begin by casing out local banks. They target wealthy areas, focusing solely on safety deposit boxes, and are sure to pick neighborhoods that will likely have jewelry, cash, and other valuables stored within the lockboxes. At the First National Bank of Barrington, they find exactly what they are looking for. Not only are the safety deposit boxes sure to contain valuable loot, the architecture of the vault is perfect for the plan. The safety deposit boxes are placed in 2 perpendicular rows against the walls and meet in the corner. Where they meet lies a dead space. A small, empty square 2 feet by 2 feet, just large enough for a man to hide inside, out of sight from anyone looking inside of the vault. With the target now set, Smarto's next step is to familiarize himself with the staff's routines. He has a very disarming way about him and gets on a first-name basis with the staff. He and Vincent open a safety deposit box under false names. They begin to make note of the comings and goings of the bank staff, what time they take breaks, how often they go into the vault, and what the procedure is for allowing customers inside. Smarto notices that customers are escorted into the bank vault by employees, but are not escorted out. They are left on their own accord, presumably to deal with their safety deposit boxes. This gives Smarto an idea he wants to test. He tells Vincent to flirt and schmooze with the vault attendant while Smarto goes inside tending to their rented box. While Vincent flirts, William Smarto is able to exit the vault and the bank unnoticed. Now he knows for sure escape is possible. The next step is to smuggle tools into the bank. Smarto's solution is ingenious. He stores his tools one by one into his safety deposit box. As his tools outgrow the size of the box, he tells the bank tellers that he's an art dealer and will need to start storing the larger items, including canvases. The bank staff play unwitting accomplices and give Smarto the space that he requests. The vault at the First National Bank of Barrington also had one other serious security flaw within its design, apart from the dead space. The ceiling of the vault was not solid. Instead, it was made of a series of panels that could easily be lifted up. He brings in a piece of plywood to create a shelf above the false ceiling. There, he places the rest of his tools, duffel bags for the eventual loot, food, water bottles, and empty bottles for relieving himself. Step 2 of the plan is now complete. But before Smarto can pull off the heist, he will need to disable the security alarms. The vault at the First National Bank of Barrington had sound sensors installed, which would raise the alarm should any noise be detected in the vault after hours. This was to prevent thieves from attempting to drill into the vault from the outer walls or even from underground. While drilling is not a part of Smarto's plan, he knows that he will still need to disable the sound sensors to carry out his heist. Luckily, William Smarto is multifaceted. He has an aptitude for electronics. With a little bit of research, he learns that all he needs to do to cripple the sound sensors is to poke a small hole in what is called the sound accumulator. He does so using a cheap screwdriver. The problem, however, is Smarto doesn't know if he's discovered all of the sound accumulators in the vault. To test whether or not the coast is clear, he places an alarm clock on his shelf in the false ceiling and sets it to go off after hours. At night, in the shadows, William Smarto lies in his car observing the bank. At midnight, the alarm clock is set to go off. Shortly thereafter, police arrive. Smarto ducks down and watches the police, who quickly determine that nothing is amiss and chalk it up to a false alarm. The master thief now knows a few remaining sensors need to be disabled. A few nights later, Smarto runs the test again. This time, no authorities arrive. The alarm system has been crippled. The stage is now set for the perfect crime. Friday, April 10th, 1981, 3 p.m. William Smarto enters the bank like he has so many other times and requests access to his safety deposit box. The bank teller leads Smarto to the vault and then exits. Smarto, however, never leaves. Once he sees the coast is clear, he quickly and quietly hurls his body up atop the row of safety deposit boxes. He shimmies backwards into a corner and drops himself into the tight dead space. William Smarto has disappeared out of sight. Just as he planned, none of the bank staff notices that he has not exited the vault. The staff then prepare to close up the bank and lock the vault for the weekend. They set the lock in place attached to a timer. The vault is now locked. It can only be opened at 7:30 a.m. on Monday morning, 2 days away. Unbeknownst to them, they have trapped local hairdresser William Smarto inside. Smarto waits an hour to ensure that everyone has left the premises. When the coast is clear, he exits the dead space and accesses his shelf in the false ceiling. Pulling out flashlights, tools, food, and water, he sets the stage where he'll be working for the next 2 days. Smarto had custom modified a bolt to be the exact diameter of the locks on each safety deposit box. This part of his plan is critical. The bolt must fit perfectly around the cylinder lock, allowing Smarto to hammer the lock through the box itself, hopefully without leaving a trace of surface damage. He will then need to carefully reassemble the box back into place. If even one scratch occurs, the staff could see the damage on Monday morning, and the entire plan would be a failure. And so, Smarto individually chisels out 150 cylinder locks. It's meticulous, nerve-wracking work, and he's on a tight deadline, but despite this, Smarto takes time for meal breaks. He even fancies himself a Robin Hood. Smarto could tell by the contents of some of the boxes, including mortgage documents and bank loans, that some of the owners were on tough times. And so, when he found valuables that were too large for him to steal, he decided to place them into the boxes of those he deemed down on their luck. After each box, Smarto picks up each and every metal shaving from the floor. Painstakingly, he reassembles each and every security deposit box. Anything that Smarto does inside of the vault has to be undone. The weekend goes on, and Smarto continues working. April 13th, 1981, Barrington, Illinois, 7 a.m. Monday morning arrives, and Smarto only has minutes left as he finally reassembles the last box. Quickly, he looks around the bank vault, trying to ensure he has left no trace of himself. Satisfied, he quickly changes into a workman's outfit. He knows the bank has construction work being done on the exterior of the building, and is hoping he'll be able to blend in. With seconds left to spare, Smarto shimmies back into the dead space and waits for the vault to be unlocked. The bank employees arrive to open for the week as normal. The vault attendant arrives, comes down, unlocks the vault, and checks inside. All seems perfectly normal, just how they left it on Friday evening. William Smarto, using a dentist mirror, observes from the dead space. When he sees the coast is clear, he quickly jumps out. and retrieves 2 duffel bags stashed with loot from the false ceiling. This is it, the critical moment. Calmly, Smarto takes both duffel bags and walks out the vault door. He makes his way through the lobby and into the freedom of the sunlight. There on the curb is Vincent, waiting in a vehicle. Smarto places the 2 duffel bags inside the car, but he's not done. There's so much loot inside of the vault that Smarto can't bring it all in one trip. He has to go back into the vault to retrieve 2 more packed duffel bags. With nerves of steel, he heads back into the bank, and just a few minutes later, rejoins Vincent. The 2 brothers then drive away. William Smarto has just pulled off one of the greatest bank heists in American history, walking off with over $1.1 million in items. When the FBI arrives, they will be perplexed by the level of planning and cunning involved in this heist. A quote from William Colson, former district attorney, reads, "The alarm clocks mystified us for a while, until we realized how the sound accumulators worked and how they were disabled. Ultimately, throughout the search, the FBI found holes in all of the sound accumulators in the vault, but even with this evidence, the trace goes cold. The thief had left no trace, and it may have remained that way had it not been for the events that occurred 1 year later." September 3rd, 1982, First National Bank of Lake Forest, Illinois. An elderly customer is using the bank's restroom when suddenly a wooden panel falls from the ceiling. The customer complains, and the superintendent of maintenance goes to replace the panel. As he looks into the crawl space, he sees a man's boots sticking out at him. Minutes later, police arrive, and William Smarto is placed under arrest. Above the washroom ceiling, police find a bottle of water, a radio, an alarm clock, gloves, scissors, 2 flashlights, pliers, 5 screwdrivers, and a jogging suit. In the vault's false ceiling, they find an industrial-sized jackhammer and an electric saw. Surprisingly, the alarm clock is what draws the most attention. Authorities realize this is the same MO as the robbery that occurred 1 year earlier at the First National Bank of Barrington. After showing a picture of Smarto to the Barrington Bank employees, they identify him as the man who rented a safety deposit box under the name F. Zito. Smarto is tried and convicted by a federal grand jury, guilty of conspiracy and bank robbery. His brother Vincent has ailing health, and due to this, is not charged for his part in the crimes. After conviction, Smarto faces nearly a 55-year federal sentence. He steadfastly maintained his innocence, however, until prosecutors offered him a deal. They would consider reducing the sentence only if Smarto made restitution of the stolen goods. Looking down the barrel of a life in jail, Smarto complies. A duffel bag gets mysteriously delivered to the authorities by Smarto's attorney. It was clear that he had been sitting underwater. Authorities agree to lessen Smarto's sentence down to only 8 years after this restitution, but only on one condition. He would have to work with the FBI and bank security experts to ensure a heist like this could never occur again. Because of William Smarto, the architecture of bank vaults has changed forever. All corner dead spaces have been eliminated, and false ceilings are no longer used, but the legend of William Smarto lives on. Hairdresser by day, bank robber by night.